Good morning and welcome to the Nicollet County Board of Commissioners meeting for June 12th. Would we please all kindly rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Led today by Commissioner Lipke.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Just an update on your agenda. We're going to be moving quickly through our items so that we can get to MnDOT's report early and public appearances hopefully early. We'll be looking to take a break either right before property services or right after, as we have a public hearing at that time. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as stated.
So moved. I will second.
Kemp and Lipke. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. Introduction of new employees. Who would like to go first? Public Health?
Sure.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, Administration. I have the pleasure today of introducing Rebecca Nicollet to you. Rebecca comes to us from District 77, and she started about a month ago. She is a new public health nurse, and she will be doing maternal child health and WIC. Would you like to say a few words, Rebecca?
Sure. I did my nursing school at South Central College and MSU. Graduated from MSU in 2013. I'm married. I have a 2-year-old son, and we live in Nicollet County.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Very good. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy your employment here.
I very much am. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thanks so much.
Good. Thank you.
Joan, do you have a new employee today?
Yes. Good morning.
Morning, Joe.
And it's my pleasure to introduce to the Nicollet County Board this morning Erin Wattell. Erin is a new financial assistance, eligibility assistance worker with us. She joined us 2 weeks ago tomorrow. She comes to us from LeSueur County, and so with her background, we did some restructuring in our financial unit, and she will now be a full-time METS worker or a MNsure worker. That's her background, so she comes to us from another county. So do you have some things you'd like to share?
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I live in Mankato. I have a almost 12-year-old daughter, and really enjoy working in the county government, so I'm really excited to be here at Nicollet County. A little bit shorter commute, and I've been really happy with all the response I've gotten from my coworkers, so I'm looking forward to being here.
We welcome you. Thank you very much. County Attorney?
I'm here today to reintroduce Joe Tayrab to the board. Joe joined us in July of last year, June of last year, and then left us for a brief period of time to go on a deployment, and has now rejoined us after that deployment. So I wanted to bring him back to reintroduce him to the board, and also thank him for his service to our country and doing a job that not a lot of people probably would want to be deployed to do. So I wanted to bring him back and welcome him back.
Yeah, so it's
Good
good to be back.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's good to be back. I want to publicly acknowledge and thank you all, and thank Michelle for all the flexibility that you guys had to show and allowed me to leave. And I really had a great time. I'm really looking forward to kind of getting back to the work here. So thank you.
Welcome.
Great.
Back. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
And now he has to leave to go back to court.
So any other new employees, Mr. Administrator? Nothing
That's
today?
it for today.
All right, moving along on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. Before we move on this, we've added that Contegrity information.
Right, there was one additional bill that was emailed out regarding our improvements made in the Human Services Building.
Very good.
I'd move the consent agenda with the amendment. I'll second.
Commissioner Kemp, Commissioner Lipke, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. All right, so Greg, would you like to come forward with the MnDOT CHIP outreach presentation with the many folks that you have here today? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board for allowing us to come in here today and give you an update on the work that we have, not only in the 10-year program, or what we call the CHIP program, but also in the next 4 years, and even all the work that's going on yet this summer. So I have with me here today Gordy Regenscheid. He's our state aid engineer. He assists with the flow of monies through the DOT onto the county projects that we have, that you have, excuse me. And then Sam Parker is also here. He's a good representative from the region, and is very helpful with planning and giving eyes and ears of folks out here. So I want to thank you all for that. In your packet here today, we've got our presentation is on the left-hand side, and the map. So we're trying to make sure that we are using consistently so that you can see what we have going on this year, what we have going on in the next 4 years, which is what we call the STIP, or the State Transportation Improvement Plan, and then what we have on in what we're planning for, what's coming on to our radar in terms of roads that are not performing well, bridges that are come onto our radar for rehab and replacement. So we'll be going through those individual things. So again, my name is Greg Oss. I'm the district engineer, and I want to thank you for this time today. So just quickly, talked a little bit about what we'll be going through. We also have the bike plan that we were here last year, where we gave you an update as where we were for planning as a state as a whole. And then this last year, with the help of Lisa Bigham and Seth and his peers in the counties, they sat down and looked at the individual counties and how they, what kind of proposed, and when you put it all on one piece of paper, how does that impact the county, and it can be used for planning off into the future. We've already found it to be helpful when we're doing our own road projects, so that we are looking to see where the bike plans indicate where that improvement could be made. So we're making sure we concentrate those dollars where the bike plans, so you get the consistency and continuity throughout the system. So a little bit about where we're at. You know, a lot of things are no different than yourselves. Right now, from a statewide perspective, you know, we're increasing the monies that we've been putting into pavements, and have been for quite some time. We've been decreasing the amount of monies that are going into our bridges and other infrastructure at this time. That doesn't mean we're leaving bridges out there that are in poor condition, but we're just saying that, you know, for right now, for the short term, we'll be putting more money into pavements. What we will have coming off in 10 years from now is there going to be an increase in bridges. Just historically, like on I-90, those bridges were all built within about a 10-year, 15-year period, and they all come due about the same time. So we have a lot of work that we'll be doing on bridges out that far out into the system. We also have a commitment to our ADA transition plan. It's our intent to be in compliance by 2037. It seems like a long time from now, but no different than yourselves. When you start adding up and all the different elements that you have to go through, the cities that what we have to go through, and working with our local partners, that will be a challenge for us to get there in the future. We do want to thank the legislature that did provide additional resources in 2017. It's kind of, on one hand, we're saying thank you, and on the other hand, we're saying we're still short. No different than everybody else, but we're still, if we're going to meet our needs off into the future, we still have that funding need going forward. The next slide is our diagram. It's just an illustration that shows where the monies come from District 7. When I came back in 2012, we were running about a $40 to $60 million program. In the last 5 years, we've averaged $110 million of monies to the system, and then when we look out into the future, we're looking at, again, about a $70 to $80 million program. Those dollars come at us in two forms. The blue, the more consistent bar on the bottom, is the non-NHS, or the non-national highway system, the low-volume roads in our system. And the green is managed statewide. That's the higher volume roads. That's why you see the flexibility in variability in those green dollar amounts. You know, that one year we'll get a sizable increase, so that can handle, like we put $50 million into I-90 not that long ago. That was a state fund that came off of savings from like St. Croix and some other larger projects, which we benefited from. So that's the flexibility and the variability that you'll see in our revenue stream coming at us. The next slide, you'll see that it just kind of give you a quick indicator as to that pie chart there. That shows us where from our perspective, where our investments are going. 75 or just over 75% goes into pavements, bridges, and roadside infrastructure like drainage, rest areas, and things like that. So we have just a little sliver for traveler safety, but that would be a standalone type project, and very similar to. You know, we received monies to do cable median barrier, which we've been deploying around the state. We received monies to do roundabouts, very specific, very things that are driven by from a safety perspective and a safety need. The other 2% critical connections, when we talk about bikes, that would be, again, some are standalone, but not many, but most are. How do you handle the shoulder? Do you pay 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet? You know, when you think about your agricultural movement, you think about the bike movement, we think about how we're going to manage that off into the future. And then ADA. We have some standalone projects, and we were able to accomplish most of our work that's standalone, going into communities, but now we're having to go into the larger communities, and again, that'll be a more substantial effort financially in both, and also in terms of effort working together with the locals on those projects. And then again, we have our project delivery, the cost to do business, the use of consultants, and then purchasing right-of-way, supplemental agreements, and what have you. The next slide. We have some immediate challenges in terms of our investments. Like I'd mentioned before, as we go and continue to go into the urban cores, the cost of doing work in urban centers has been substantial. That's why we like to get out in front and let people know when things are coming on in the 10-year horizon, so that our local partners can plan and prepare for those investments coming up into the future. It's more on the needs of the locals and them managing and being able to provide the funding for their local utility needs. And then looking at, when we have that time when we're talking about it, we can also plan our systems. We can plan our ADA upgrades so that we're effective in working together and being cost effective with our solutions. Really emphasizing, and you know, this is our 3rd year of getting out, making sure that you're aware of where we're at, what's coming onto the radar. And we've received a lot of good feedback from folks, and we want that to continue. Just doesn't have to be in this setting, but as you know well, we work and we interact with each other quite a bit, and to bring those issues and concerns forward. So specifically here in 2018, this construction season, again, you have a lot going on in and around your area. We have 169 from St. Peter to Le Sueur. It's from April to October of this year. You probably already experienced that. And you know, that's a $14 million investment. And the project that was added here very recently, we actually started the physical design of it in January, and is the 169 Mankato, North Mankato levee. I'm sure you've heard a little bit about it, but it was something that needed to be done this year in order for lower North Mankato to not be subject to being in the floodplain. So it's a very important project, and it needs to be accomplished, and it's on a good path to be accomplished yet this fall. We're just getting started here. Like any good start to any good project, we say it's going to start and then it rains, and can't really get it started. But the 14 project in North Mankato is getting up and running here, and will be impacting traffic hopefully just mostly in June and July. Trying to get in after school, get out before school. We all know that it's a heavily traveled route. It is our most highest volume route in our district, and we're trying to manage that. and then the work in Highway 14, 15 at New Ulm. They had a slow start, but they had a great May. I don't know if you've been watching that project at all, been able to drive in and around it, but it got off on a good foot. Even though the river came up, they were able to stay active on the Front Street Bridge and keep moving things forward. And then the good old Minnesota River, here it comes again, and I understand that you've been impacted by it also, the high water this spring. When we look off into the future, into the what's left in the STIP area, in the STIP program, out to 2022, we still have quite a bit of work in the area. Highway 22 and 111 from Nicollet to Gaylord. We also have Highway 14, Nicollet to New Ulm, and we've had a lot of questions and concerns about that, but there is that road that we do need to take care of, and we're trying to be thoughtful about that. And I'll talk a little bit later about what the status is on Highway 14 and the 4-lane development. 99 from Nicollet to St. Peter, mill and overlay with some bridges, and we also have Highway 22 to 111. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit later too, but that's coming onto our radar in 2022. And then 169 north of St. Peter, we'd like to get it all done when we're working out there right now, but yet we'll have the Robards Creek, we'll have to finish that other bridge in 2022. But fortunately, we prepared for that, and we'll be able to move traffic in and around that project. So the next map over is what we're seeing in the long-range program, and actually for yourselves, we only have the one project that'll just minimally impact maybe the flow of traffic through 169, but mostly it'll be in Mankato, North Mankato, 169 in 2024 as a mill and overlay, repair bridges, just some general upkeep of 169 in that area. So I kind of keep thinking this general area that we'll quit messing with you, and then I come back and I see that we're doing even more work. So we appreciate the relationship that we've had with everybody. We appreciate the willingness to help us get our work accomplished. We all know that it's better when we're done, and we'll have a better system and a safer system when we're done, and we truly appreciate the help and assistance that we've had through the years. The next map over is the highway bike plan. When we were here last, we talked specifically about what does it look like for the state as a whole, and now we're looking at the connectivity that we have here locally, and what we have here in Nicollet County predominantly is that those lines that are in red would be proposed local bike routes along your portion of the system, and specifically the blue lines are what the state is considering and looking at as we make improvements going off into the future. And then the yellow line is where the DNR has been looking at different trail options. There's been a trail option associated with the improvement of Highway 14 that's been in the planning, and then also that Minnesota State River Trail, which there's been a lot of discussion about, and open houses have been held on that. Still all in the planning stage. Funding has not been provided or made available to those individual investments. But what it does for us is it all gives us a good look and feel of what the connectivity would be, how do things connect. So if I make an improvement on your road system, will that be an improvement that would carry through to the next road system? And those are the planning level work that we got accomplished this last year, and we'll see how it get implemented and unfolds off into the future.
Greg, if I could just take a moment,
Sure.
Thank you for being here too. The question that always comes up, I understand the connectivity with the bike routes, et cetera, but I'm still trying to find the source of funding for those, and I know that not to diss any bicyclists or anything like that, but where do those funds come from? Are they coming from people who drive motorized vehicles, or is it some other special fund?
There is no special fund. In the past, as you know, through the ATP, there's been some federal dollars that were made available that you could compete for them to put in. If I think of like the Watt Line Trail that drops down out of St. James, that's an off-road system improvement, and it competed for those funds. There's a very few sources of those funds, but as much or more, it's thinking about the planning for the future. And even if you can't accommodate a bike in your most recent plan, if you're thinking about that off into the future, tried to pick routes, working with everybody that would with the investment, however you handle the shoulder, however you handle if you're putting in rumble strips and things like that, how you do that type of work, it can facilitate a bike movement as opposed to just leaving it all gravel or whatever.
Right.
So I think there's just some thoughtfulness about it and going forward. And then if you're thinking about where you would want to invest in a bike plan going forward, here's our first step. Here's our first step of looking what the connectivity could be. And I totally agree with you about the struggle for the funding to do a bike investment versus a pavement investment. But I think as we go forward in the future and we continue to see more people utilizing bikes, getting out and walking more, I think it's going to be more and more of a challenge for us to make sure that we provide a safe passage for all modes.
And again, I just think of the safety if it's connected to the road. If it's a Watt line like that one south of St. James, I mean, that becomes a nice luxury, or an old railroad track like the DNR does. So I'm concerned about the safety for bicyclists on a road when they're facing much bigger vehicles.
Agreed. So the last little piece is just some local discussions that we've been having, and I just want to give you some thanks for your participation. When we were working on the Nicollet to Mankato segment of Highway 14, we entered into a bit of a conversation about what to do with 22. Should we investigate that as a turnback? As you know, that particular road system, I go out to Northland a few times a year, and I can kind of watch the deterioration myself. And we currently have it in the 22 program. Whether or not, I'm not sure where that'll actually, if we'll make it to 22 or if we'll do some kind of interim improvement to get us there. But we have been talking about what the possibilities or the probability would be to turn back Highway 22, and then also turn up Nicollet County 23 from 14 down to 68. So I want to thank Seth. He's been a very good partner in having conversations and being thoughtful about what could be done, what needs to be done in order for that to take place. Don't know, now that 22 is actually on our radar, we'll have to think about those, that type of an improvement, what it would take to do that, work with Seth, and again, bring it back in front of you all so that to see if that's something that we want to do and want to make that type of a jurisdictional change. And then a little bit on Highway 14, the 4-lane expansion. Again, I want to thank you all for your participation that we've seen to date. The Highway 1415 Gateway project, the work that was done in order to make sure that we had a good face and a good exposure to the public and what the issues and concerns were, and came up with a great solution on that project. And again, we're trying to do that very similar thing with the 4-lane expansion segment from New Ulm to Nicollet. The group has been again gathering more input, taking it in, and we're going to bring it to what we would consider to be a 30% plan, so we know where the road's going to go. Might even take it to the fact that I'll know where the construction limits will be, so that if money became available, we could start the purchasing process. So we're still hopeful that money becomes available. When you look at the list that was generated, we're not that far down the list in terms of money, in terms of priority for where we're at on this go around. So I feel pretty comfortable making sure that we have readiness, and I think that's what served us well over the years, is being ready to go. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that we can be prepared if money becomes available. So that's what we're going to work towards. Again, I want to truly thank Seth for all the work that he's done on the ATP as a partner in all the road projects that we have going on. And I was thinking a little problem you have, what will be the detour for next year, so we all have it. So, but anyhow, and being very helpful to help resolve issues and work things out. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your participation in the ATP. Michelle has been very active in TZD, and we appreciate all of that. And then our relationship with Sheriff Lang through the years has been very fruitful and very helpful when we have construction projects and enforcement. Didn't get to thank him even 2 years ago when we were celebrating the opening of 169, because he got called away for on a call. But we really have appreciated all the help and support that we received. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from commissioners for Mr. Oos?
I was just wondering, since Seth has been helping you, maybe you could help Seth a little bit and get our road open.
Well, I gotta thank you. You are very, very good at helping me to make that something that we could all work towards. So, but again, we'll kind of wait and see what the issues are that you have here today. I understand it's a kind of a pothole issue, and in terms of the drainage going away from this particular thing. So we'll work with Seth and see where things are at. It will be, if it happens again next year, it would be quite a problem for us. So we'll have to think about that.
Yeah, because 12 is going to be the detour for 15 north. Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a longer turnaround.
On behalf of the board and on behalf of the Nicollet County Commissioners and our residents, Greg, I want to thank you and the folks in MnDOT for being good partners with us. I think things work better when we partner with each other instead of telling each other we don't know what we're doing. And I take great pride in serving on the ATP and working with the transportation concerns in our area. So, any other questions for Mr. Oos? We thank you for your appearance today.
Thank you for your time today.
Keeping us up to date.
All right.
Paying attention to our agenda, open it up now for public appearances. I'm sensing that we have some folks from north of Cortland who are here. I would invite folks who are willing to make a statement to come forward, give your name and address, and we'll limit comments to 3 minutes, okay? So please come forward if you could give us your name and address and share with us your concerns today. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Robert Halke. My address is 41565 551st Avenue, New Ulm. I'm president of the Cortland Rural Fire Association. And as you know, because I've been here in the past, we're concerned about safety of those north of the Kister Pond as far as emergency services being able to get there. I've just got a few comments and a couple of questions, and it would have been nice if the DOT guys would have stuck around. Maybe they'd have some input. But you can probably talk to them later. My first...
I know they have other appointments.
Oh,
okay, all right. My first point was, I know there's been talk about pumping up to ditch 38A. At first I thought anything to get the water off the road, anything to open that road up. But the more you think about it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. 3 things: the cost, and that it's only temporary, If that would have been done 2 weeks ago, we'd be right back where we started. And the other thing is, I oppose dumping it into 38A because that's my ditch system, and several others have approached me saying they wouldn't go along with it. If that would have been pumped in here into 38A recently, we would have lost more crops taking care of somebody else's water, and to me that doesn't make any sense. Second point, several of us have agreed that it would make more sense to, with a small tile, maybe a 6 or an 8-inch tile down to the creek, to the south or southwest. I did talk to Dave Sturing. And I understand a couple of the commissioners had been out there yesterday, and he's not real willing to go along with that since it's a private creek. But I think if it was regulated, I think it's something that could be worked out. And Dave Ubel had talked to the Cones, and they seem pretty willing to take that water on. I think something could be worked out there. As far as paying for it, I don't think the county should be, I don't think we should be paying for it. This is a private issue. Those draining into that pond, there is no outlet to that pond currently. Those draining into that pond, it should be like any other ditch system. They need to take care of the cost of this. And fourth point, is there any water being pumped into there? I don't know this for sure, but if there's water being pumped in there currently, that should be stopped, in my opinion. There are rules, and I know I had mentioned this last time. There are state statutes that you cannot block a road, and water is one of the elements you cannot block a road with. If there's water being pumped in there, adding to the flooding, they're causing damage. And to me, it's illegal. That's my own opinion, but I've looked up the state statutes, and that's my interpretation of them. Also, at the meeting in January, when the DNR was present, and the Soil and Water Conservation Service, they claimed that no permits were needed to drain into that pond. I want to know if that was true, because I do not believe that. If there's pumping going on, if there were wetlands drained, they needed a permit. I want the answers to that. And also, I'm offended by comments that the DNR would allow us to lower it. In my opinion, the DNR is in charge of managing this public water, and I didn't think they did a very good job of managing it. And I realize with all the rains recently that contributed, but this isn't an overnight thing. This has been coming up for 20 years. And if nobody saw that, then they weren't doing their job.
We thank you, Mr. Halke. As you will note on the agenda, at about 10:30 or so, Mr. Greenwood will give us an update on the flooding at County Road 12. If we could have your name and address, please, and state your concern.
Larry Lipke, 54605 County Road 21, Cortland. I'm on the fire board with Bob, so I second all the things that he said about the problem with fire department getting to the north. And I'm also on the town board, and we've improved 531 somewhat, and 551 is gone the other way. We had a little bit of a washout. 571, which will be used a lot when the next year detour is. We signed a contract last night for $117,000 to remove I think it's a box culvert in there, and put in a new one, because we know that road will be used a lot no matter what gets done with 12, and especially if 12 is still blocked off. And I think I agree with Bob that the best would be to have a small tile going to the west. It won't take much, just, getting a little off of there, and that would be a permanent solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lipke.
Can I make one comment?
Okay.
Just to Bob's thing about the pumping, any pumping arrangements we were trying to make, they would have shut off the pump if there was a heavy rainfall event.
My comment is on the pumping that would be going into the pond at the current time.
No, I mean on pumping into 38, that issue.
Right, but if they're pumping in there before, say they were pumping in there last week, we get 4 or 5 inches of rain this week, I'd have more corn underwater right now than I do, and that doesn't make me happy. It's not my water. They should be taking care of their own system.
The board will take more public testimony on this issue. We're here to listen. Anybody else?
I think there's a pump there, but I think it goes to the west, doesn't it, John?
I'm not sure where it goes actually, but I think it winds up there.
I think it goes to that lagoon behind West that flag.
It's
Can I have your
probably still
name
the
and
same water level at this time though.
A name and address, please, sir.
Bruce Holke, 51589 County Road 21, Cortland. I don't quite understand why we're so involved in this. Our ditch system, when we wanted to do something on it, we were told we had to get a petition together and landowners sign it, and to improve our ditch, and now it seems the board is just discussing it, and the landowners don't have to have a petition or anything to get rid of their water. They just pump it into this slough and think it belongs to the county. And they're blocking a county road, which shouldn't be.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anyone else would like to share their thoughts on the issue or any other issues here before the board today? I will mention to you again that our engineer, Mr. Greenwood, will be giving the board an update at about 10:30 this morning on the flooding issue on County Road 12. Any other comments? Members of the board, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
This would be a good time to report on our little tour that we took.
Let me wait until we talk to Seth.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Mr. Chair, we're a little bit ahead of schedule for our break. We probably could, as long as Sheriff Lang's here, we could jump to his item. That shouldn't take real long, and that would give us about 15 minutes for a break, and then we have a public hearing scheduled at 10 o'clock that we have to address at that time. And then, like the chair said, Seth will come on at about 10:30.
Yes, good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, members of the board. My agenda item there is a joint powers agreement under the Minnesota Anti-Heroin Task Force Program. Basically what that is, it's a joint powers agreement with the state of Minnesota. If we have an investigation in regard to a heroin overdose or an opioid overdose, that would allow us to turn in for reimbursement for overtime hours that my investigators or deputies may work in regard to that. And a lot of our current drug task force has this agreement. So the task force members, we had one here a month or so ago in North Mankato. They were able to get reimbursement under this grant, and we haven't had any specifically with our own agency yet, but it could very well happen down the road. So basically, I'm just looking for the board to approve that grant, or that joint powers agreement, so that we're able to utilize reimbursement if and when we have one of those cases.
Commissioner Kemp?
Madam County Attorney, do we have any issues? Have you reviewed this?
I've looked at it. I don't have any issues.
I'd move acceptance of the joint powers agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Commissioner Lipke, discussion on this? Just trying to, are there monies involved here, Dave?
There's no monies involved that,
Right.
that we're gonna get unless we actually have an incident where we need to turn in for overtime. So it's basically,
Right.
if we have something come up, we turn in an invoice to them and they reimburse us.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from commissioners or staff? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. You have anything else, Dave, for us?
I think that's all I've got today.
Now, we haven't had any issues out on 12 with respect to any kind of accidents or people driving into the water or pulling them out or anything like that, have we?
Well, we haven't had any accidents to this point. We've had a lot of issues with people moving the barricades and going through there when they're not supposed to be. So we've had a lot of those. I mean, it's almost a daily occurrence where somebody moves the barricades and they're going through there. I know that Seth's had his staff out there and resetting barricades. I guess it'd be my suggestion that we hard barricade it if that's a possibility.
So we've had issues with people who didn't want to take the time to, who took the time to move the barricades.
Correct. Yep.
What's the charge for something like that?
Well, there's a statute for driving around the barricades. I don't know the extent of the fine. I think it's up in the $300 range, to be honest with you.
Petty misdemeanor.
Appreciate your report on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have seen a lot of sheriff's department vehicles going to check on it, quite often.
Well, we appreciate you keeping us up to date on that.
You bet. Thanks.
Can
So
I
that-
ask Dave, that new boat that we got, did we use it on that rescue out in Swan Lake, or?
We did.
Okay.
The kayaker that was missing.
Yeah.
We didn't specifically use it the day that she was rescued. We went out with the DNR officer, but
Oh.
the following week we went out to locate the kayak and we used it then.
Okay, that's good
So-
timing, and we just
Yeah.
got it and put it to use already, so.
Right.
yeah.
Did they ever find the craft?
Yes.
Oh, you
We
did?
went out and found it
They did.
with the new boat and the drone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you,
Thanks,
Sheriff. Think we could take a break?
Sure, and then I could probably have Mandy come a little bit early.
Right.
And she could do some of her other items.
Okay.
So,
Let's break until 9:55, unless there are any more public appearances with respect to County Road 12, which we will address through our engineer at about 10:30. You're welcome to stay. We'll reconvene at 9:55.